Deep inside the darkest, most highly protected vault of your brain, a microscopic horror story is quietly unfolding at this very biological second. A single exhausted brain cell has reached the absolute end of its natural lifespan. According to the strict, ancient laws of human biology, this failing cell is supposed to gracefully self-destruct in order to make room for a fresh, healthy replacement. But instead of dying, it actively refuses the command. It mutates. It physically barricades its own doors, turns off its internal death sequence, and transforms into a terrifying, toxic, immortal entity. Modern neuroscientists officially classify this crippled entity as a senescent cell, but the global medical community has adopted a far more accurate, chilling nickname. They call them zombie cells. And right now, millions of these immortal, undead cells are violently accumulating inside your memory centers. If you are over the age of 55, and you have ever felt a sudden, terrifying wave of brain fog, or panicked because a familiar word entirely vanished from your tongue, you must listen to me right now. You are not losing your mind to an unstoppable, incurable genetic curse. The heavy cloud descending over your intellect is not your fault. Your memories are fading simply because your brain is being suffocated by a localized, microscopic zombie infection. And today, I am going to give you the exact, scientifically proven biological weapons to hunt them down and eliminate them. For decades, you have been subjected to a deeply flawed, historically arrogant medical system that has handed down a sentence of profound guilt and hopelessness to the aging population. When your memory begins to falter, society subtly blames you. They suggest that you simply did not do enough crossword puzzles, you watched too much television, or you failed to keep your mind active. This deeply ingrained narrative is not only incredibly cruel, it is scientifically entirely inaccurate. The guilt and the shame you may feel about your changing memory are the direct result of a colossal failure in modern medical communication. For over a century, the pharmaceutical industry and the global neurological community have been entirely obsessed with a single villain, a sticky substance called amyloid plaque. They built a multi-billion-dollar empire trying to invent synthetic chemicals to scrub this plaque away, completely ignoring the undeniable biological reality that the plaques are not the cause of the disease. They are just the smoke. The fire producing the smoke is the rapidly multiplying army of zombie cells that your doctor likely never even learned about in medical school. They missed this because the discovery of cellular senescence is so staggeringly new, so incredibly revolutionary, that it is only now beginning to rewrite the textbooks of human longevity. To completely change the trajectory of your cognitive health, we must journey back to a groundbreaking scientific discovery made in 1961 by a brilliant anatomist named Dr. Leonard Hayflick. Before Hayflick, scientists believed that human cells cultured in a laboratory could divide and replicate infinitely. They believed cells were inherently immortal. But Hayflick observed something absolutely profound through his microscope. He realized that a normal human cell is like a biological copy machine, and it has a strict, unbreakable mechanical limit. A cell can only divide roughly 50 times. After the 50th division, the copy machine physically breaks down. The biological ink runs dry. This hard stop is now famously known as the Hayflick limit. The mechanism behind this limit is incredibly elegant. At the very end of your DNA strands are microscopic, protective caps called telomeres. You can visualize these telomeres exactly like the little plastic tips at the end of your shoelaces that keep the string from fraying. Every single time a cell divides to create a new cell, that plastic tip gets sliced just a tiny bit shorter. Over decades of life, after millions of cellular divisions, the telomeres become so incredibly short that the plastic tip entirely vanishes. The DNA begins to fray. When this happens, the cell knows its time is up. To protect the rest of the body from mutated, frayed DNA, the cell triggers a magnificent, deeply noble biological program called apoptosis. Apoptosis is programmed cellular suicide. The cell quietly dismantles itself, packages its own debris into microscopic trash bags, and allows the immune system to sweep it away, leaving perfectly clean space for a new, vibrant cell to take its place. But as we age, and as our bodies are subjected to decades of systemic stress from processed foods, environmental toxins, and chronic inflammation, this elegant system suffers a catastrophic, terrifying failure. Some of these incredibly old, heavily damaged cells reach the Hayflick limit. Their telomeres entirely burn away, but the apoptosis self-destruct sequence jams. The cell refuses to die. It enters a state of permanent arrest. It becomes a zombie. Now, if a zombie cell simply sat there and did nothing, it would just be taking up valuable real estate inside your brain. It would be a nuisance, but not a catastrophe. However, A senescent cell is not a dormant, sleeping entity. It is violently, aggressively hostile. Because the zombie cell is terrified of being discovered and destroyed by your immune system, it begins to frantically manufacture and spray a highly toxic, highly acidic biological sludge into the surrounding tissue. This toxic sludge has a scientific name, the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, or SASP. You must visualize this SASP sludge exactly like a massive, highly corrosive oil spill occurring deep inside the pristine, delicate valleys of your brain's memory centers. This sludge is packed with inflammatory cytokines, destructive enzymes, and heavy biological poisons. When a single zombie cell sprays this sludge, it physically melts the delicate, branching connections of the perfectly healthy brain cells located next to it. But the horror does not stop there. The SASP sludge is so toxic that it actually acts as a biological contagion. When the toxic spray hits a healthy neighboring cell, it traumatizes that cell so severely that the healthy cell instantly mutates, shuts down its own death sequence, and also becomes a zombie. This is the exact, terrifying mechanism of cognitive decline. It is a microscopic chain reaction. You start with one zombie cell in your hippocampus. It sprays its poison, turning 10 neighboring cells into zombies. Those 10 turn into 100. Those 100 turn into thousands. Before long, entire regions of your memory network are completely flooded with toxic, inflammatory sludge. Your healthy neurons are suffocating. Their connections are melting, and they begin throwing out sticky amyloid plaques in a desperate, frantic attempt to defend themselves from the acid rain. The heavy, dark cloud of brain fog you experience, the lost names, the sheer confusion, is not the inevitable ticking of the aging clock. It is the acute, agonizing physical sensation of your brain cells drowning in the toxic secretions of undead cells that your body has failed to clear away. This brings us to a crucial, deeply empowering question. Why is your body failing? Human biology is magnificent, and you actually possess an elite, highly trained microscopic assassination squad specifically designed to hunt down and kill these zombie cells. These assassins are a specialized type of immune cell called natural killer cells. In your youth, whenever a cell turns senescent, your natural killer cells would instantly detect the SASP sludge, track the zombie down, and completely obliterate it. But the zombie cells have evolved a terrifying defense mechanism. They have learned how to manufacture a highly specific cloaking device. They cover themselves in a specific combination of proteins, known as the BCL2 protein family, which acts exactly like an invisibility cloak. The zombie cell wears this cloak, and your immune assassins simply walk right past it, completely blind to the monster hiding right in front of them. The pharmaceutical industry, upon realizing this, has spent the last decade frantically trying to invent synthetic drugs to rip this invisibility cloak off. They call these theoretical drugs Senolytics, meaning destroyers of senescence. They are attempting to patent highly toxic chemotherapy agents to do this job, which cause devastating side effects, immense physical suffering, and massive damage to the aging body. But while the pharmaceutical industry was looking in test tubes for a chemical weapon, a brilliant consortium of researchers at the Mayo Clinic and the Buck Institute for Research on Aging decided to look back into the ancient, evolutionary pharmacy of nature. And what they discovered has sent absolute shockwaves through the global longevity community. They discovered that the most powerful, ruthless, and highly targeted senolytic weapons on the face of the earth do not require a prescription, they do not cost thousands of dollars, and they have absolutely zero toxic side effects. They are ancient, intensely powerful chemical compounds synthesized by specific plants to defend themselves against harsh environmental stress. When you consume these specific plant compounds, they absorb into your bloodstream, breach the heavily fortified blood-brain barrier, and hunt down the zombie cells with the precision of a microscopic sniper rifle. They literally rip the BCL2 invisibility cloak right off the zombie cell. The moment the cloak is removed, the zombie is exposed, and your body's natural killer cells instantly sweep in and obliterate the threat, clearing the toxic sludge and allowing your memory centers to finally breathe, heal, and rebuild. The absolute undisputed king of these natural zombie killers is a rare, highly pigmented flavonoid called Fisetin. Fisetin is the precise biological compound that gives strawberries and apples their deep, vibrant red coloring. When researchers at the Mayo Clinic tested Fisetin on aging mice whose brains were utterly riddled with zombie cells and toxic inflammation, the results were nothing short of science fiction. The Fisetin bypassed the healthy cells completely, specifically targeted the senescent cells, and triggered massive, widespread apoptosis. The zombies committed suicide en masse. The toxic SASP sludge was cleared from the brain, and the cognitive function of the mice was profoundly restored. They were able to navigate mazes they had previously forgotten, demonstrating sharp, youthful reflexes. But there is a critical, absolutely vital caveat to this nutritional rescue mission. You cannot simply eat a bowl of conventionally grown, heavily sprayed supermarket strawberries and expect to cure your brain fog. Modern agriculture has drastically depleted the soil of its nutrients, and the selective breeding of fruit for sugar content has completely bred the medicinal compounds out of the plants. To achieve a clinical brain-saving dose of Fisetin, you would have to consume roughly 40 pounds of organic strawberries in a single sitting, which would flood your body with a lethal amount of fructose sugar, completely destroying your metabolic health. Therefore, you must extract the weapon from the fruit. You must seek out highly purified, clinical-grade Fisetin extract in supplement form, isolated from the stems of the Japanese wax tree, which is the most potent, concentrated source of Fisetin on Earth. But taking the Fisetin is only the first step. These ancient plant compounds are highly unstable, meaning if you simply swallow a capsule of Fisetin with a glass of water on an empty stomach, your powerful stomach acid will completely incinerate the compound before it ever reaches your small intestine. Your brain will receive absolutely nothing. To ensure the sniper rifle actually reaches your hippocampus, you must wrap it in a biological armor. Fisetin is intensely fat-soluble. You must consume it alongside a massive dose of high-quality, deeply protective dietary fat. A tablespoon of pure, cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil or a handful of raw, heavy macadamia nuts creates a microscopic lipid sphere around the Fisetin, safely carrying it through the acid of your stomach and delivering it directly into your bloodstream, ensuring maximum neurological impact. The second elite zombie killer in our biological arsenal is a deeply potent, intensely bitter compound known as quercetin. While Fisetin acts as the sniper, quercetin acts as the heavy artillery demolition crew. It is highly specific in its targeting, specifically attacking the zombie cells that accumulate in the vascular tissue and the deep endothelial lining of your blood vessels. This is incredibly critical, because if the blood vessels leading up into your brain are choked with senescent cells, the heavy, oxygen-rich blood your memory centers desperately need will be entirely blocked. Quercetin violently clears these vascular roadblocks. The absolute highest natural concentration of quercetin is found in the deep, outer, papery layers of red onions and in the small, intensely flavorful flower buds known as capers. But here, we must deeply emphasize the physical reality of the aging digestive tract. I am intimately aware that demanding a senior to consume raw red onions or heavily brined capers is often a recipe for agonizing, severe acid reflux, deep gastric distress, and severe heartburn. The mucus lining of the stomach naturally thins as we age, making raw, sulfur-rich vegetables completely intolerable for millions of older adults. You must not subject your body to agonizing pain to achieve a cognitive rescue. You can completely bypass the digestive distress by utilizing the ancient culinary science of slow, low-temperature extraction. You do not need to eat the raw onion. Instead, take the thick, dark red outer skins of several organic red onions, the very parts you normally throw in the garbage, and drop them into a pot of gently simmering bone broth. Allow them to steep for 2 to 3 hours. The intense, prolonged, low-level heat physically breaks down the harsh, indigestible cellular walls of the onion, releasing massive, highly concentrated volumes of pure quercetin directly into the rich, soothing fat of the broth. You then simply discard the skins and drink the broth. You are consuming a highly bioavailable, deeply comforting, entirely pain-free elixir that delivers massive doses of the senolytic compound straight into your bloodstream without ever triggering a moment of gastric distress. The third and final weapon in our zombie hunting protocol is perhaps the most miraculous, because it acts as the ultimate biological cleanup crew. It is a profoundly powerful compound known as Apigenin. You can kill the zombie cells with Fisetin, and you can clear the vascular roadblocks with quercetin. But once those cells are dead, they leave behind millions of microscopic corpses inside your brain tissue. If these corpses are not rapidly flushed out of your skull, they will simply rot, creating a secondary wave of severe neuroinflammation. Apigenin is the master key that unlocks the brain's massive, internal flushing system. It is found in incredibly high concentrations in dried parsley and the delicate yellow flowers of the chamomile plant. When you consume Apigenin, it travels directly to the central nervous system and violently binds to specific receptors that control your anxiety and stress levels. It forces the nervous system into a state of profound, inescapable, deep relaxation. This is absolutely critical because the physical flushing of your brain, a mechanical process governed by the glymphatic system, can only operate when your body is in the absolute deepest, most paralyzed phase of slow-wave sleep. If you are tossing and turning, if your mind is racing with anxiety, the glymphatic dishwasher never turns on, and the dead zombie corpses simply sit there and rot. By consuming a heavy, highly concentrated tea made from pure, loose-leaf German chamomile, steeped heavily with a teaspoon of dried parsley, exactly 1 hour before you lay your head on the pillow, you are flooding your brain with Apigenin. This forces the electrical rhythms of your brain to slow down, plunging you into an incredibly deep, restorative, paralytic sleep. The moment you enter this deep sleep, the glymphatic system activates, pumping a massive, high-pressure wave of clear cerebrospinal fluid throughout your entire brain, violently washing the dead senescent cells, the toxic sludge, and the broken DNA entirely out of your memory centers. We have unmasked the terrifying, hidden biological reality of the aging brain. You now understand that cognitive decline is not an inevitable genetic tragedy, but the direct result of immortal, toxic zombie cells suffocating your hippocampus. You understand how the ancient evolutionary plant compounds of Fisetin, Quercetin, and Apigenin act as the ultimate side-effect-free weapons to rip the invisibility cloaks off these monsters, allowing your immune system to obliterate them. You possess the highly modified, deeply protective protocols to extract these compounds using healthy fats, slow-simmering broths, and deep sleep teas, completely bypassing the agonizing digestive issues of the aging body. You now hold the exact, scientifically validated blueprint to hunt down the microscopic poisons in your mind, clear the inflammatory sludge, and physically regrow the vibrant, razor-sharp memory of your youth. However, everything we have discussed today about killing these zombie cells and washing their microscopic corpses out of your brain relies on one massive, entirely hidden mechanical assumption. Once the glymphatic system washes the dead cells out of your skull, that toxic debris drains directly down into your body's lymphatic system to be filtered and eliminated. But what happens if the main drainage pipe of your entire lymphatic system is completely kinked and physically paralyzed because of the specific, highly restrictive type of clothing you are wearing to bed every single night? The zombies are dead, the brain is washed, but the toxic sludge is completely trapped in your neck, backing up like a clogged sink, and slowly poisoning your thyroid. If you want to discover exactly what this hidden nighttime clothing mistake is, and the incredibly simple, zero-cost wardrobe adjustment you must make tonight to permanently unclog your lymphatic drain and flush the toxins completely out of your body, you need to click the video on your screen right now, and I will show you exactly how to let your body breathe.